66-year-old Augustin Duran, convicted of lewd and lascivious act, child molestation on children under the age of 14, was beaten brutally to death just 5 days into his prison sentence. His attacker, a 19-year-old named Andres Ayan, who was doing 6 years for a robbery charge. He would find him in the day room, get the word of what his charges are, and immediately start beating the shit out of him in front of officers and inmates alike. They were still in the reception part of prison, which means they're all getting their permanent housing and they're in a temporary unit while they're getting classified with their custody and where they will go. And a young man, 19 years old, with 6 years left to do, who just got to prison as well, saw this child molester and knew he had to take him out. After getting word of his charges and how he's been a pedophile for years and years and years, the Chomo, Augustin Duran, was just starting a 55-year sentence. This piece of shit here, it was not his first incident, as he was convicted 2 other times and released to the streets where he would molest and expose and do the worst to children time and time again. With 55 years, even if he made parole, it was like a death sentence for this Chomo. So they housed him in a classification unit with inmates with medium to low custody with release dates, thinking that would save him. As you can see, in prison, time doesn't exist, only opportunity. This Chomo had 55 years to do, just landed in a low custody unit for 5 days. And a 19-year-old, 2 days into a 6-year sentence for robbery, brutally murders him in front of staff and inmates. That's the way it goes. What I try to explain is this man went in for raping a child, and within days, he was murdered. After about 5 to 7 minutes of being football kicked in the head, having his head slammed into the ground, officers would come in and pepper spray the 19-year-old inmate. This is the politics of prison. Everybody says how they feel about these child molesters and what they feel they would do if they was ever around one. Now, this kid only had 6 years to do. He would be out before he was 25. Yet, you put a man that raped children near him, and do you think for 1 second an organization, a officer, anybody, even just that 19-year-old, won't grab you and beat you viciously until you cannot hurt children anymore? Did he really think he was gonna come to prison after raping children and do his little time and just retire from his fucking Chomo career? No. They got his ass in the day room. The 19-year-old was either trying to put some work in or just following the law of prison, where if you put a rapist, a child molester anywhere near anybody, you don't care, 18 to 80, it does not matter. You beat them until they stop moving or until officers spray you. Or it could be personal, it could be a friend, whatever it may be. But the reality of this Chomo, the 66-year-old that was beaten to death within 5 days of his prison experience, what he would do is he would find women, his neighbors or whoever was going through problems, and come to them while they were going through divorces or custody battles, convince them to get all types of injunctions and restraining orders on the father of the child, isolate them, give them money for lawyers, where the whole time he was molesting, raping, and doing the worst to these children. Eventually, the mothers would find out. Some wouldn't say anything because they felt it was their fault. Finally, some spoke up. Listen, it does not matter. I don't care if you have to lie, but if a person comes to you in your worst time, they're the devil. There's nobody that's going to come to help your children that doesn't know anything about you unless they're snakes. And snakes don't get better. They shed their skin and become bigger snakes. The more opportunity you give them, the more you show them how frazzled, how weak you are, the more they're going to infiltrate. And that's what he did. So he would go and say, listen, Your man's crazy. Let's get a restraining order. Let's do this. Let's do that. He was the devil in disguise, right? And he would get away, from it all the time. And it took him having to go to prison for 5 days to be brutally murdered in front of everybody. Now, think about that. You notice all you chomos, all you piece of shits out there that hurt children, why does it always seem officers come after the fact? So I don't care if you have to lie and tell anybody, hey, listen, I might be going through a divorce, but my man's crazy. My father's a cop. Whatever you got to say, you must be vigilant, head on a swivel. Your comfort does not constitute the safety of your child. It's better to suffer alone and be vigilant than ever have help from the devil. Predators are out there looking for any weakness. And a lot of times it takes so much of this and they get caught, they go to prison, but in their mind, they're going there to retire. Except they get put into housing with a youngster that could be home already, 25. Instead, he beat you to death in front of the entire prison. Whether he did it for an organization, he did it because something happened to him in his life, it doesn't matter. The whole reason this happened is because you hurt a child. Leave our children alone. Stay out. Stay free. Us.